You know, when we think about great historical figures, we often focus on the big, famous moments. But sometimes the most important chapters are the ones that happen offstage. This is one of those stories. How a seemingly routine military assignment to a dusty province became the unexpected laboratory for an entire nation.
So let's start with the central question. It's 1905, and a brilliant, but let's be honest, politically troublesome young officer gets posted to Damascus. Now, on the surface, this looks like a punishment, right? A classic move to get a potential troublemaker as far away from the capital as possible. But was it really just an exile? Or did this supposed dead-end assignment actually hide the seeds of a revolution?
And just look at the sheer drama of that year, 1905. I mean, it's a total roller coaster. In January, he's at the absolute top of his class, a brand new staff captain with a bright future. By February, he's locked in a cell, arrested for his political views against the Sultan. Then, after months of uncertainty, he's suddenly released and shipped off to the Fifth Army in Damascus. What a year. It really sets the stage perfectly for everything that comes next. So, he arrives in Damascus, but he's not totally alone. He lands right in the middle of a circle of other officers who felt the exact same way he did, frustrated, angry about the empire's decline. So this wasn't just a military posting, it was more like a gathering of discontented, brilliant minds in a place where you just couldn't ignore the empire's problems. You have to remember, this was a world away from the palaces and politics of Istanbul. All those theories he and his friends had debated in secret meetings back in school, well now, they were his daily reality. In Damascus, the decay of the Ottoman Empire wasn't some abstract idea. It was right there in front of him. You could see it, you could feel it, you could touch it in the streets and in the government offices. So, what did he actually see on the ground? Well, first, there was rampant corruption, just draining the state of its lifeblood. He had to deal with constant local rebellions that the central government was way too weak to handle. Honestly, the Sultan's authority felt distant, almost like a fantasy. And that big idea of Ottomanism, the belief that everyone, no matter their religion or ethnicity, could be a loyal Ottoman citizen, it was completely falling apart. It just wasn't working. And this quote just perfectly sums up his conclusion. This wasn't about losing battles or a few miles of territory anymore. The very spirit, the entire purpose of the state, felt like it was dissolving into thin air. It was a deep, profound identity crisis, and he had a front row seat. And this brings us to the real turning point. I mean, put yourself in his shoes for a second. You're watching this massive system just collapse all around you. What do? Do you just keep your head down, do your job, and accept that it's all over? Or do you try to build something new from the wreckage? For a man like Mustafa Kemal, there was really only one answer. Just observing the problem wasn't enough. Not for him. So, in the quiet back rooms of Damascus, far from the prying eyes of the Sultan's spies, all that talk, all that discontent, started to turn into action. This is the moment the soldier really begins his transformation into a revolutionary. He and a few trusted colleagues founded a secret society, and they called it Vatan ve Hürriyet. The name itself was a bold declaration: motherland and liberty. I mean, that tells you everything you need to know. This was not a book club. It was a secret political organization with a very radical goal. Vatan ve Hürriyet was really his first shot at building a revolutionary movement from the ground up. Everything, and I mean everything, had to be done in total secrecy. The members were trusted officers, and their mission was crystal clear: resist the absolute power of the Sultan and find a new way forward for their homeland. This was his training ground, his revolutionary internship, if you will. And the commitment they made was absolute. This wasn't some casual political debate. This was a conspiracy where getting caught meant imprisonment or even death. They bound themselves together with a solemn oath, dedicating their entire lives to the cause, motherland until death. Okay, so you might be thinking, a small, secret society in a faraway provincial city? How on earth does that connect to the grand history of a modern republic? Well, that's the whole point. This is where we see how the lessons learned in Damascus literally became the blueprint for the future Turkish Republic. It is so crucial to understand this. Damascus wasn't just a footnote in his career. It wasn't some random thing that happened. It was the foundation. It was step one on a very long, very dangerous road that would eventually lead to the birth of a new nation. You can just trace the whole journey right here. The skills he was honing, organizing that secret cell in Damascus, were the exact same skills he later used to join and influence the much larger Young Turk movement. They were the skills that helped him organize that legendary defense at Gallipoli. And ultimately, they were the skills he used to build an entirely new government in Ankara and lead a war of independence. You see, every single step was built on the one before.
So if you take one thing away, let it be this. Damascus was his political and revolutionary laboratory. It's where he tested his ideas, sure, but maybe more importantly, it's where he saw, up close and personal, what was broken beyond repair. He learned the harsh lesson that the old system couldn't be fixed. It had to be completely replaced. The Turkish Republic was built not just on high-minded ideals, but on the tough, practical lessons he learned in the Syrian desert.
And that really leaves us with a final question to think about. We always focus on the big battles, the famous speeches, but what if the most important lessons, the ones that truly forged the leader, were learned years earlier in the quiet, dusty heat of Damascus? Without that early, harsh education in political reality, would the foundation of the Republic have been built with that same clarity, that same unshakable resolve? It's definitely a question worth considering.